Chapter 1, Cosmic Riddles. About the time of the end, a body of men will be raised up who will turn their attention to the prophecies and insist upon their literal interpretation in the midst of such clamor and opposition. Sir Isaac Newton, 1642 to 1727. 20th century man is still at a loss to explain the amazing knowledge and expertise that characterized some of his ancient predecessors. Unlike primitive savages roaming wild and naked in the bush, they planned the pyramids, built Babylon, engineered Stonehenge, and structured the Mayan Caracol. 1,000 years before Darwin formed his theory of evolution, ancient Mayans and Toltecs carved their own version of evolution in stone. Their calendar was more precise than ours today. They even knew and used penicillin, and like the ancient Egyptians, they designed great cities and mammoth pyramids. But from where or whom did they get their information and expertise? Where did the ancient Dogon of the West African Republic of Mali receive their knowledge of Sirius' invisible satellite? Sirius, a star of the first magnitude, is the constellation Canis Major, is 8.5 light years away, yet they knew the satellite's position, gravitation, and orbit. The star's white satellite was not discovered until 1844 and was not seen by telescope until 1862, but the Dogons knew of it long before the telescope. Why did the Assyrians, who lived more than 2000 BC, encircle the planet Saturn with a ring of serpents? How could they know of Saturn's rings? They depicted no other planet in this way. In addition to encircling Saturn with serpents, they also recorded the different phases of the moon with an accuracy not seen again until the 17th century AD, but they did it in 1440 BC. How did those ancient Greeks know that there were 7 stars in Pleiades? They could only see 6. Did a higher intelligence inform them? Where did the Sumerians of Mesopotamia gain their expertise? According to researchers Alan and Sally Landsberg, they pop up like some devilish jack-in-the-box around 3000 BC, fully equipped with the first written language, sophisticated mathematics, a knowledge of physics, chemistry, and medicine. The pre-Inca mountaineers of Peru performed amputations, bone transplants, cauterizations, brain surgeries, and a variety of other complicated operations. From whom did they learn their advanced surgical skills? From whom did builders of the awesome structures of Tiahuanaco gain their knowledge 30 centuries ago? To erect such massive monoliths, the Landsbergs assert, would require a colossal power cranes or some secret of levitation unknown to us. Not only that, but those titanic blocks, some weighing 50 tons and more, were so precisely cut and interlocked that no mortar was needed to bind them. Even today, one cannot pound a chisel between them. All this was accomplished without power cranes or hydraulic lifts, elephants or oxen. How on earth, then, could they have done it? The only possible answer is, with nothing we know of on earth. Above the Bay of Pisco, a giant pictograph in the rock, measuring about 820 feet in size, forms a mammoth trident, pointing heavenwards. The pictograph could not have been planned from the ground, for no engineer could have seen his workmen on the rock face above. To view it, one has to fly above it. Yet, when it was made 2 millennia ago, men supposedly had no means of flight. Visitors to the megaliths of Stonehenge have been mystified by a dozen riddles. One observer, Andrew Thomas, asked, how could men wearing skins have designed and erected this computer in stone? Greatest riddle of all. Where did the ancient Egyptians learn the secret of pyramid construction? Sir Flinders Petrie called the Pyramid of Cheops the greatest and most accurate structure the world has ever seen, and the Encyclopedia Britannica states that the brain power to which it testifies is as great as that of any modern man. That is an understatement. No one today could build the Great Pyramid. This Great Pyramid is undoubtedly the greatest of the 7 wonders of the world. Practically everything about it is awesome. The length of each side base is 365.2442 cubits, exactly the number of days in the solar year, including the extra day each 4 years. The gradient of the pyramid is 10 to 9. For every 10 feet that one ascends, one rises an altitude of 9 feet. Multiply the altitude of the pyramid by 10, raised to the 9th power, and you have 91,840,000, which equals the number of miles from the Earth to the Sun. This also means that exactly 100 pyramids would reach the Sun. 1,000 pyramids would reach to the Sun. And these are not the only amazing measurements found in the Great Pyramid. Cartographers have discovered that it stands exactly in the land center of the world as it is known today. The Great Pyramid stands midway between the west coast of Mexico and the east coast of China, between North Cape of Norway and Cape of Good Hope of South Africa. It stands at the intersection of the 30th parallel, both latitude and longitude. So incredible are some of these facts that the most skeptical of scientists have had to admit that the pyramid's location and dimensions can never be a coincidence. Alan and Sally Landsberg have supplied us with even more incredible statistics. Somehow its builders knew that the world was round but flattened at the poles, which could cause a degree of latitude to lengthen at the top and bottom of the planet, that it rotated in one day on an axis tilted 23.5 degrees to the ecliptic, causing night and day, and that this tilt caused the seasons, that Earth circled the sun once in a year of 365 and a fraction days. The designers must also have known that Earth's celestial North Pole described a slow circle around the pole of the ecliptic, making the constellations in the sky appear to slip backward, the precision of the equinoxes, and bring a new constellation to the zodiac behind the sun at the equinox approximately every 2,200 years in the grand cycle of about 26,000 years. These facts, too, were part of the internal measurements of the pyramid. Puzzles remained unanswered. Now comes the obvious question. How could the designers of this pyramid have observed the stars for 2,200 years? Another puzzler. How could they have computed 5,000 years ago the circumference of our planet? And yet another. How could they have measured the rate at which the Earth revolved on its axis? Also, how did they know of the existence of a leap year every 4 years? Although this information did not become part of our knowledge until 600 years ago, the pyramid builder knew it more than 4,000 years earlier. One wonders whether the prophet Isaiah had this pyramid in mind when he said, "In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord, and it shall be for a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts." Isaiah 19:19-20. Further questions intrigue us. How were those gigantic constructions put together? How were those mammoth blocks of stone, some weighing 20 tons, cut, polished, and made to fit perfectly into place? Even today, the seams between the blocks are hardly visible. And all this accomplished without cement. In all, more than 2 million blocks of stone, enough to build a 6-foot-high wall from Los Angeles to New York, were used. The height of the Great Pyramid is equal to that of a 42-story building, and its weight is 6.5 million tons. Yet the ground has never given way under it. Nor has the pyramid itself moved a quarter of an inch in 5,000 years. Who engineered this mammoth undertaking, and to what purpose? After the endless research and experimentation, we still do not know the answers. In spite of our technology and know-how, our computers and electronic gadgetry, the mystery of the pyramids remains. It is doubtful if modern man could build any of these pyramids. Certainly not the Great Pyramid. An attempt was made a few years ago by a Japanese firm, but like others before it, the project ended in failure. How does one account for this awesome display of knowledge by our prehistoric ancestors? Where does one find the key to such cosmic riddles? If my thesis is correct, the key may appear in the near future. Hollywood scenarios. It is clear that our generation, more than in any history, has focused its attention on the future. Hollywood always alerts to man's dreams and nightmares, has reflected this truth in a spate of contemporary films. Its two most popular themes during the past 2 decades have been those of terrestrial disaster and extraterrestrial invasion. Disaster has become one of the preoccupations of the movie moguls, so much so that a new word has found its way into our vocabulary. In dictionaries, disaster mania. Historian Christopher Latch sums it up by saying, storm warning, portents, hints of catastrophe haunt our times. Hints is an understatement. Stories and movies of catastrophe and calamity have become a deluge. Such motion pictures as Earthquake, The Towering Inferno, The Last Wave, Meteor, The Day the World Ended, and The Late Great Planet Earth have followed each other in rapid succession. All were blockbusters at the box office. Disaster flicks have been the most profitable genre of the 1970s, nor is the deluge tapering off, reports Time magazine. These films obviously have some entertainment value and a lot of curiosity value, but they also mirror the apprehension rooted deeply in the American psyche. Many of the disasters portrayed by Hollywood are parallels of calamities predicted in the Bible. According to Luke 21, 9 through 11, the major signs would include wars. It is claimed that wars have characterized the human family throughout recorded history. There has never been a year without a war somewhere. But our generation has seen an increase in the intensity, frequency, and scope of war never before imagined by the most bloodthirsty tyrant. Dennis Healey, British Defence Minister in the Labour government, said on TV in 1967, "This has been the most violent century in history. There has not been a single day since the end of World War II when hundreds of people have not been killed by the military action." Our generation also has witnessed the introduction of a completely new element, weapons with the capability of destroying all life on the planet. Science in the 20th century has made the whole world unsafe to live in. There is no shaded grove or subterranean cave where man can safely hide. In Matthew 24:6, Jesus warns, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Commenting on this passage, R. L. Heimers asserts, it actually predicts war weapons capable of ending the world. The verse makes no sense unless it refers to wars that will make people afraid that the world will end by war. Yet, no one had such fear until 1945 and the advent of atomic weapons. Jesus predicted such wars 2,000 years earlier. Famines. Skeptics maintain that the famines predicted by Jesus in Matthew 24:7 have been common occurrences throughout history. But again, there is a difference. They have never been on the scale with the frequency witnessed in the last few generations. The New York Times reports that every 8.6 seconds, someone dies of malnutrition. 10,000 every day. Over 3,500,000 every year. Aggravating the situation is the frightening increase in the world population. It has more than doubled in the last 50 years. Our planet, according to the Leighton Ford, has become a global sardine can. In many areas of the third world, this situation has been further aggravated by the practice of Eastern religions. In India, for example, Hindus believe in incarnation. That is, many people come back as cows, mice, or some other animal. Because of this, cows are sacred and never slaughtered. Every cow eats enough food to feed 7 persons, and India has 200 million cows. The bottom line is that if these animals were slaughtered for food, millions in India would be well fed, and the abundant surplus could be exported to other starving nations. But as long as such beliefs continue, famines will persist as a grim specter. Earthquakes. The greatest single disaster known is an earthquake. Like war and famine, they have been around a long time, but they also have increased in their intensity and frequency. Dr. Stanley Cronkite, in his historical survey of earthquakes, says, of the 13 greatest known earthquakes, 10 have occurred in the 20th century. It is not without reason that Jeffrey Goodman called us the earthquake generation. The United States witnessed a large number of earthquakes each year. California alone averages more than 100, yet the states have never really had a truly terrible trembler. The much publicized San Francisco quake in 1906 killed 700 persons, but the 1976 earthquake of Tangshan, China killed 655,000. There's been a lot more since then. This book was written before a lot of the others. In addition, a new and grim element has been added to the earthquake scenario of our day. Man-made quakes have become scientific possibilities. Dr. Cronkite, quoting from an audio letter of Dr. Peter Better, says, "The matter of China has for some time been the number one item on the Kremlin pre-war agenda. Last month, August 1978, Chairman Mao of China visited Romania and Yugoslavia in connection with Russian overtures for reconciliation with China. When Mao met with Romania's premier, he was offered certain positive inducements on behalf of the Soviet Union. However, he was informed that Russia is determined to move fast in its preparation for war against the West. Mao was told that if China is to restore its ties with Russia on a favorable basis, it must be done quickly. Accordingly, Mao was informed that the Soviet Union would shortly provide him with a series of 3 demonstrations of Russia's Operation Geophysical Warfare Arsenal. The first demonstration was to be an undersea earthquake in the vicinity of Taiwan, scheduled for September 2nd, 1978. The second to take place the following day was to be an earthquake on land in the area of Western Europe that is not generally known for earthquake activity. Both of these, Howe was told, would have the intensities in a Richter scale range of 6.5. The third demonstration, the finale, was to be an earthquake centered on the Caspian Sea coast of Iran, north of Tehran, about September 14th. However, the exact strength was not predicted. The reason given was the Iran quake would be brought about by remote means whose results are not yet highly predictable. On Saturday, September 2nd, an undersea earthquake measuring 6.6 on the Richter scale occurred near Taiwan, right on schedule. The next morning, southern Germany was rocked by the most powerful earthquake in 35 years, measured about 6 on the Richter scale. 11 days later, on September 14th, a fantastic earthquake reaching 7.7 on the Richter scale erupted some 400 miles southeast of Tehran instead of hitting north of Tehran. In moments, the town there ceased to exist, and the devastation was heavy over a wide area. Within days, the death count had reached 26,000 and was still climbing. That's horrible. In case one should conclude this to be a far-fetched, unproven theory, no less an authority than Zbigniew Brzezinski, assistant to President Carter for National Security Affairs, refers to this very possibility in his book Between Two Ages. Not only have new weapons been developed, but some of the basic concepts of geography and strategy have been fundamentally altered. Space and weather control have replaced Suez and Gibraltar as key elements of strategy. In a similar vein, Dr. Gordon J.F. McDonald of the University of California in Los Angeles, in an article in Geophysical Warfare, underscores the techniques of earthquake modifications and how they may well be used in support of national ambitions. Zbigniew Brzezinski quotes him as saying, "Accurately timed electronic strokes could lead to a pattern of oscillations that produce relatively huge power levels over certain regions of the Earth." Weather control and earthquake manipulation will undoubtedly be some of the grim and devastating weapons of war in the future. The Bible predicts that the greatest quake of all time is yet to happen. Even the Shensi catastrophe of 1556 and the Tagshan disaster of 1976 will pale into insignificance compared with it. This event is graphically foretold in Revelation 16:18-20. And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the city was divided into 3 parts, and the city of nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. The accumulation of disasters in our days finds an increasing number of people echoing the words of President Reagan of the United States. "I turn back to your ancient prophets in the Old Testament and the signs foretelling Armageddon, and I find myself wondering if we're the generation that is going to see that come about." I don't know if you've noted any of those prophecies lately, but believe me, they certainly describe the times we're going through. These disaster warnings of the end time predicted in the Bible have received full treatment from Hollywood's special effects technicians. All signs, that is, except one. There is a solitary sign that has eluded the film experts thus far. It may be the only instance where Hollywood has not yet caught up with the Bible.